The only thing that separates women of color from anyone else is opportunity. You cannot win an Emmy for roles that are simply not there. So here's to all the writers, the awesome people who have redefined what it means to be beautiful, to be sexy, to be a leading woman, to be Black.
Powerful. I mean, preach. That was Viola Davis receiving an Emmy Award for lead actress in her role as Annalise Keating in How to Get Away with Murder. She is the first Black actress to receive the Triple Crown of Acting. Viola has an Oscar, an Emmy, and a Tony Award.
So I like when I see when I'm looking at me when I'm walking past the mirror. Don't stress through the night at a time in my life, ain't worried about if you feel it. Got my head on straight, I got my vibe right, I ain't gonna let you kill it. See, I won't change my life just fine.
Hello and welcome to A Seat at the Table. I am Christine White. Today we're discussing African Americans in Hollywood, particularly their impact in the industry.
I'm Monica Pearson. African American women in Hollywood are on the rise in roles as storytellers, directors, producers, showrunners, and much more. But it has not always been this way.
And I'm Deneen Milner. One of my most admired female filmmakers is Ava DuVernay, who's received worldwide acclaim and created her own production company, Array. Let's take a look at a clip to see how she's taking her seat at the table.
Film is a patriarchal system that's built by men for men, predominantly for white men. That's the history of the medium in the United States. There's a lot of talk about shattering the ceiling, and certainly I sit here privileged, right, after decades of women who have done it. But in general, I think a lot less about breaking down his door or shattering his ceiling, and more about building my own house.
Let me tell you something. Ava is my hero.
Yeah,
You gotta understand, she is my hero. So Ava and I go back in the industry. She was a publicist back in the day when I was an entertainment journalist at the Daily News. And she was the one, it was her and another woman named Jackie Bazan who used to do all of the publicity for all of the Black films. And to see her decide, you know what, I don't want to publicize everybody's films, I want to make them.
Right.
And that was a decision that she made in her 40s.
Yes.
In her 40s.
Work.
She decided to make films when she turned 40-something. Let's talk about Queen Sugar and how she manages to partner with Oprah to tell that beautiful story. But she insists on each episode being directed by another woman of color, right? So she's not just storytelling, she's creating an avenue for other women to do it.
And Shonda Rhimes is doing the same thing in the world of television.
Absolutely.
Well, the woman I like the most is back in 1937. And the reason I mentioned Freddie Washington, she's from Savannah, Georgia. She could have passed for white, but always said, you know, I am a Negro and I am proud of it. But what a lot of people don't know is that she was the founder of the Negro Actors League in 1937.
Wow.
And she got roles because of her fair skin, but then she was denied roles because in most instances they wanted to put us in roles as maids. And she pretty much said, no, we're not doing that.
Yep, her and Lena Horne, right?
Yeah, she and Lena Horne. And to see how she really decided to be an activist in the industry and for people of color to move up in the world in the 30s.
That's right.
In Hollywood.
That's
That's
right.
amazing. I mean, for me, from a business perspective, one of the most important pieces of the Hollywood industry is distribution, right? So whoever controls distribution, who controls the network, controls the story, controls the theme. And that's why I chose Kathy Hughes and Oprah Winfrey, these women who have decided that they're going to own, they're going to take ownership and determine what stories get out there. Ownership is just so important to me because that is what you can pass on to generations to come, and it shapes the perception. The Birth of the Nation was a film about a fictional idea about a Black person raping a white woman. It was propaganda about white fear and Black people having agency and their ability to live free in America. But that was the beginning of the film industry. So we have to know that this medium was used to manipulate our perception.
Right.
And it's still used in that way, but we got to figure out how we can take the platform and use it in a way that tells real stories, positive stories, diverse stories, so that we're not just one singular idea, this black person who's preying upon white people as it began.
And that's precisely why I love black women and they're stepping forward and telling these stories. You know, that's important to me. Viola, you know, is what she said in that opening video about needing, you can't win this award if the role doesn't exist for you to
embody
go
it.
out there and
Right.
embody it,
Yes.
right? And so Shonda created that for
Yes.
her, another black woman who, by the way, who insists that when she creates stories, she doesn't look at people according to their color or anything. She's just creating stories. But in How to Get Away with Murder, there's a scene in How to Get Away with Murder that is my favorite scene ever. It is the blackest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh,
and
wait.
it was
I know
with
which one.
Cicely
With
Tyson.
Cicely
When she's
Tyson.
doing her
She's doing
hair.
her hair.
Question her hair.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I have never seen something like that in my life on television.
But
And I
it's
was
so
just like,
real
oh,
in
it
our
was
lives. It's so
real.
familiar.
Absolutely.
But I also think that when you look at the motion pictures, even if they aren't telling stories of now, Black Panther grabbed an international audience as well as our national audience. And there, too, you still had family.
That's right.
So I think what we're seeing with this new generation of filmmakers is providing what I call freedom to tell the story that they want to tell in the venue that they want to tell.
I mean, I think that part of the piece that is really important when we have black filmmakers and black storytellers is that we're able to see depth of character.
Yes.
So you are not just relegated to being sort of one parallel person with one idea or one thought fixed to one stereotype. You can be complex. The wage gap in Hollywood is just, it's ridiculous. From what I can tell and what I've read, they say that it is the wage gap for black women in Hollywood is even greater than the wage gap in other industries.
Listen, I did Taraji Henson's book, and we talked a lot. She talked to me a lot about how difficult it was for her to sit in, I'll say, in Benjamin Button. She got nominated for an Oscar for Benjamin Button. You know how much she made? She made about $300,000.
And she had to pay for her own
And she had to pay
lodging
for her own
in Orleans.
lodging.
Yes.
And you know how much Brad Pitt got?
Jesus.
$8 million. She had to raise her quote. You know who raised her quote? Tyler Perry.
Tyler Perry, yeah.
Tyler Perry raised her quote. So if she would have stuck with what they were paying her, she'd still be making $300,000-$400,000 a movie. Tyler Perry came along and said, "You're Taraji Henson. Of course I'm gonna pay you $1 million to star in my movie."
But then
And
you're talking about what we really need, and
Absolutely.
that's how we see the change, when we become the change agents by owning our own studios.
That's
You
right.
think back to when we started out, Michaud. You know, he was
Oscar
doing,
Michaud. Yes.
he was doing what he did at a time which they said it was impossible for black people to do. And then we've had to wait until now for someone like a Tyler Perry to come along and say, I'm building my own studio, I'm producing for television, I'm producing for streaming, I'm producing for motion pictures, and I'm making money, and I'm going to pay people what they are worth. And I was so glad, was it 2 years ago, Oscar's not so...
Oscar's so white.
Oscar's so white. Hashtag
Oscar's so white. You know, I'm glad that happened because it made the industry step back and have to face. But I don't think that would have happened except now.
Yeah, this is true. We haven't created an environment where people are pushing back.
Yes.
Because before, and actually even still to this day, what happens if you try to negotiate a higher salary in Hollywood as a black woman or a black man? You are being called
blackballed.
You get blackballed. You're called difficult.
That's right.
And there was some study that said that when you negotiate as a black woman or a black man, you are less likely to get the role. But if you're a white man and you negotiate, you're more likely to get it.
Right.
So the truth of the matter is that even the things that they teach us, oh, you're not leaning in.
But then,
I don't believe
you know,
that.
some people play it another way. they get a white attorney, an agent.
And let them go in and do all the work.
Because
sure.
it's almost
For
like,
sure.
well, I can deal with you, but I don't want to deal with them.
For sure.
But even then, that infuriates me that you have to hire as an attorney, that you have to hire a white attorney
Time out.
to get what you deserve. So I'm just
That's
put
right.
that aside for just a second, because it really hurts my heart.
That's right.
Because the other piece of this is that actors and athletes and performers are often, when they rise to a certain status, they are told that they have to have white professionals handling their business, which undermines everything we've learned about self-determination and being able to have folks that look like you in every aspect of the business. But to put that aside, even agents have said that they cannot negotiate. Agents who may have a white actor and represent a black actor as well. They know they cannot negotiate on behalf of that black actor because they will put that black actor at risk.
Yep.
And this has been reported in the Hollywood Reporter.
Over
Except for
and
people
over
like
again.
Clarence Avant.
Right, I just need to hire Clarence Avant. Right, exactly, that's what you do. Listen, this conversation is good, but we have to take a quick break. When we'll return, we will talk to an entertainment veteran with more than 2 decades of experience in TV, film, and music.
I am woman, I am black, I am beautiful, I am bold, I am confident, I am in my form, human and mortal, yet in spirit divine.
I had an intention just to create like the image that I wanted to see, like the type of black person that I related to. That was my intention, and it was just like, well, let me give it a shot so I can at least do it and then go back to keep complaining until somebody bigger does it. And didn't really imagine that like people would accept this as an archetype just from an internet show. But I was like, the more I embraced that about myself, the more it seemed to be embraced by others.
Welcome back to A Seat at the Table. That was Issa Rae, and 2 years ago, she won a Peabody Award for her show. We're now joined by LaRonda Sutton, who is the current president of Women in Film and Television Atlanta. She was the founding director of Atlanta Mayor's Office of Film and Entertainment, and she teaches film business in the Cinema program at Georgia State University. Now, we were talking before the break about Oscar So White, but you were saying that, you know, Twitter and social media had a lot to do with changing the focus.
Absolutely. Social media had just a huge amount to do with changing the focus because of the hashtag. And it allows just real-time reaction from the public and from consumers of media and entertainment to be able to say, no, we don't like this. No, we want to see more people of color. No, you can't say that. No, we need to know more about what's going on.
Yeah. So how have the figures changed when it comes to employment in the industry now? We see people winning awards, but what do the numbers really look like?
Well, in terms of like, we've been speaking about black women earlier. When you think about that, in 2018, there were 1,200 films made. And so out of the 1,200 films, only 5 had leading black roles with black women.
1,200.
Five. Yes.
1,205.
Yes. Now the numbers overall, because of what's been happening with the Time's Up and the Me Too and bringing awareness to pay parity, the numbers overall have been up for women up to 28%. So that's 40 films. And so if you want to, there is some progress, but not enough progress, especially for black women.
Well, what about the pay? You mentioned parity there.
Well, okay, so so if you think about on, the national average, if, white women are getting 80 cents on the dollar and black women are getting 64 cents on the dollar, there's still a huge disparity in for black women in Hollywood, in terms of pay. It is a disparity for us in a major way.
It is a conspiracy, okay? Conspiracy. Well, and I don't attach conspiracies lightly, but I'm gonna tell you what, Hollywood, y'all need to get your act together, because this is not right.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Absolutely.
Here's what I love, though, about social media, circling back to social media and its power. Issa Rae used social media to become Issa Rae.
Yes,
Yes,
she
she
did.
did.
Right?
Yes, she
So
did.
she created Tales of an Awkward Black Girl, which was like the best thing ever for us Black awkward girls.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
She created an entire network. So she on YouTube.
On YouTube.
Right?
She
with
did.
her own money. And then Pharrell came along and saw
Yes.
what she was doing and
Yes.
funded the second season. And it got the attention of HBO. Actually got the attention of ABC first.
Right.
And then they couldn't do it the way that she wanted it to be done. And so she took it to HBO. And that's how we got to Insecure. Like, you got to understand what that show did
Yes.
without being on anybody's television,
Right,
on
right.
anybody's big
I told all my
screen.
friends about it.
It was me too.
Made sure
and
everybody
watched it religiously. Like,
Yes.
sat there waiting for the new episode to come. I was
know.
like, oh my God, she's in my
Yes.
head. How does she
Right.
know me?
But let's talk about the creators. Let's talk about the writers, the directors, the producers. How are those numbers growing?
Well, I'm going to tell you, right now is a really magnificent time in the industry for creators, for writers, for producers, because of the new platforms, right? There is so much content that is needed that the beast needs to be fed.
Right.
So when you have Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Disney, Apple, in addition to YouTube, right? So these channels are looking, these networks are looking for content. So if you no longer have to wait. You can create your own seat at the table. Go out and start doing your own show. Take it, make your movie for $1,000 if you can.
Yes.
And get it done and put it up. Because the most important thing, one thing that I know about Hollywood, they like people who can complete the task, right? If you can finish your story, if you can go from the A to the Z, right? They will give you an opportunity because you were able to finish. Because how many people dream about, these opportunities but never do anything about it?
So when we're talking about, social media and the way that people like Issa Rae were able to create these opportunities to tell their stories in the way that they wanted and make the industry look at them, how do we, fold in Time's Up and the Me Too movement and sort of the doors that those two movements are trying to open in Hollywood for women?
Well, when you think about what happened with the Me Too movement and giving voice to all of the women that have been in those sexual harassment situations or difficult situations on their job, not only in entertainment, but across, all industries, right? Social media brought it to the forefront. It lent data, it lent numbers to the situation and what's been going on. And it gave, with that data, Time's Up is able to take it to the studios and say, see, this is what's really going on, and listening to those stories and really seeing real time what's happening. And that's the biggest impetus for change, is when you can see it happening in front of your eyes right now. And that's the beauty of social media. Let's make this change now. Let's not, because they say that parity will happen in 2052. We'll be at the point to where there's gender and pay parity in 20. We don't have that time to wait.
We don't have that time.
We can't wait that long.
No.
So what do you think about this idea of an inclusivity rider? So that's where actors put in, like white male actors will put in their rider that requires inclusivity across the board in a film, like to hire directors and stage folk and folk who do the cameras, so that there's an opportunity for everybody, and it's contractual. And the president of Netflix said, yeah, well, we can talk about it, but we don't want to contract it.
If it's not contracted, it's not
talk.
going to be done.
So you just want to talk.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the inclusivity rider that's happening, and I think from an industry trend, I think it will end up happening.
Yeah.
But what I also think is, what they'll come back to you and tell you is, okay, so where are all these folks that you say that I can hire? Right, which is the big news that Ava's going to come with in the very near future at the Bronze Lens Film Festival. She's going to be making a big announcement about her answer and solution to the inclusivity issue when you say, oh, I can't find this camera operator, this female black camera operator. You know, she's actually coming up with the solution for that.
But even here in Georgia, I know there's been the push with the Academy to train, particularly African-American students, to immediately be able to go into the film industry here, because there was so much of a shortage. Instead of bringing people in from California, they said, let's set up, the film industry said, let us set up a school and train these people and put them to work.
Georgia, to me, is one of the, you're starting to see more people of color, and you're starting to see lots of women. And the good news is because we are not so saturated like a Los Angeles and a New York, we're still a relatively young industry. The opportunity to move up faster in terms of your career trajectory is happening here in Georgia. And when you have studios like Tyler Perry Studios, that is a game changer. I don't know if you all have been there, if you've taken the tour.
No.
Yes, I
Take
have.
us.
It's phenomenal.
It's amazing.
When
Compared to the old studio, this is.
And you know, my mother came to town, and you know, she's one of Tyler's biggest fans. And it was a huge, just for her to see that in her lifetime. I compare it to you know, President Obama, to seeing a black man as president. It was for her to see this monumental, just beautiful studio, you know, owned.
Ownership.
Ownership.
All the
Yes.
different legacy.
That's right.
It does.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, just thinking about what we've been talking about today, as a storyteller and a creator, an artist who's sensitive about my, you know what,
About my
you know, I feel like we are in a moment in time where we are just seeing some phenomenal changes in the industry, but so many doors being open to us, so many doors with black women in particular, being able to willing and able to kick them down. And as that creative, I'm excited. I'm excited for this moment.
And we're even making strides here in areas where you normally don't think about it. Makeup is important, whether it's television or whether it's motion pictures. And we are so excited that the woman who does our makeup, Brianna Jones, won an Emmy this year. And this is just the beginning for her. So when you look at the industry, it's more than acting. It's so much more.
So much more, and so many opportunities that you know, that young women have right now. I mean, we had like 3 or 4 black women Emmy winners.
That's right.
That's
right.
So,
That's
awesome. Right here.
That's
So
right.
that's
so
good
amazing.
news.
That's good news. Well, I would love to call out anyone who has a platform, has an opportunity, who calls themselves not a discriminator, or there's a difference between being against racism and being anti-racist, being an ally. If you have the power to usher more folks in, use that platform, use that power to usher folks in, and think about how you can do it contractually, because the industry is not going to change by itself. It didn't get this way. As discriminatory as it is by itself. It was designed this way from our history of oppression in the United States that I can go on a million years about. So we have to be, it was intentional that we have these wage gaps. It was intentional that we have lack of inclusion. So we have to be intentional about closing those gaps, and we have to take the extra step and be courageous and stick our necks out to make sure that people have opportunities in this industry. And I really appreciate what you're doing and helping so many folks to gain an opportunity to be in this industry that people see from afar, because, you know, it's important.
Well, I just want to mention here at the seat at the table, opportunities for young women in the industry here, and organizations that I think that are really important. So I'm going to give a shameless plug.
That's right. Yes, do it.
Women in Film and Television Atlanta, WIFTA.org. I think it's a great opportunity for young women to join, to network, to be mentored by women who have been in the industry for a long time, professionals. Also, Black Women in Film here in Atlanta. the Alliance of Women Directors,
Yeah.
Film Fatales.
Yeah.
So we have like several organizations that support women in media and entertainment
Yes.
here in Georgia.
Yes.
And I think it's important that they know that we are here to support them and make sure that they are protected and fighting for their parity and pay and making sure that they have, you know, the mentorship that they need to succeed in the industry.
And the only thing I would add to all of that is we have to be supportive of those people who are in that roles. When a film comes out that maybe isn't Black Panther, go to see it,
Yes.
go
See it.
support it.
Yes.
Don't
Right.
take anybody else's word
That's
about whether
right.
it's good or bad. And then get on social media and praise it, because that's
Absolutely.
the only way we're going to continue to grow in the movie industry.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, LaRonda Sutton, for being our guest today. We really appreciate you.
Well, we have to go now, but the conversation doesn't end here, as you know.
Share your thoughts with us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now you can check us out on the YouTube, ASATT TV.
Speaking of platforms, YouTube.
Thanks for joining us on A Seat at the Table. And in the words of Shirley Chisholm, if they don't give you a seat at the table,
Bring a folding chair.
That's right.
And to the Taraji P. Hensons, the Kerry Washingtons, the Halle Berrys, the Nicole Beharies, the Megan Goods, to Gabrielle Union, thank you for taking us over that line. Thank you for the Television Academy.